First of all, produced as someone who's coming from real leadership, I must first of all pass my condolences to the King's family, the royal family, abantwana besizwe sakomkhulu, all traditional leadership, the entire country, in fact, the entire world, because we have lost the father, we have lost the king. As I'm standing here, I just came here because I'm just coming to be part of what is supposed to be done in South Africa to protect women and children. Otherwise, we are mourning. Condolences also to the family of Nkosikazi ND, who passed on during when the students were busy fighting for their rights. Condolences to the family. And when I'm thinking about the women who have lost their husbands, I'm just thinking, Program Director, about the increasing number of children who will be raised by mothers without fathers. As we know that we are faced with that challenge now. I must first appreciate the efforts by the government, South African government. As the program director indicated that we did have our conference. I was part of the conference in 2018. We participated there as traditional leaders. We were about 5 women there from the National House of Traditional Leaders because we want to be there where women are busy building our country. We're part of also our strike plan on gender-based violence. We had our inputs there. So I appreciate the efforts by the government. The institution of personal leadership, its status and role, according to customary law, subject to the Constitution, is recognized in terms of Section 211 and 212 of the Constitution of South Africa, Act 108 of 1996, Personal Leadership and Governance Framework Act 41 of 2003, as amended by Act 23 of 2009, provides for the recognition of 4 levels of traditional leadership and the establishment of structures of traditional leadership and their functions. Let's come to the roles of houses of traditional leaders. When you are talking about the house of traditional leaders, we are talking about some parliament of chiefs. To those who are not familiar to this language of the houses, houses of traditional leaders are statutory bodies established in terms of Section 212, as I've already indicated. Also, the National House of Traditional Leaders Act at national level and provincial legislation at provincial level and local levels. The law provides for powers and duties of houses. The core mandate of these houses, amongst others, is to advise government on matters affecting traditional leaders, communities, and customary law by making inputs to bills and bills referred to them by legislatures. They may also provide advice to government on any matter referred to them. The National House of Traditional Leaders is a statutory body established, and it was established according to those acts I've already mentioned, We have got also women's structures, because we noticed that we can't deal with women issues without having structures there. Legislation that we have got also legislation that provides for the establishment of traditional leadership structures. Further provides that women should constitute at least third of membership of all, in all levels of those structures. All traditional councils at local level, all houses of traditional leaders in provincial level, at national level also. At least 1/3 should be women. It is legislated. The 1/3 representation of women in governance structures of traditional leadership has been achieved across the country. I can just give you an example. As I'm standing here, my chairperson is Nkosikazi ND Mhlauli, who is a man. I'm the deputy chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders. You can imagine that if you are talking about royal leadership, mostly it's men, but they did elect me to be their deputy chairperson at national level. Going to provincial houses, the chairperson of the Free State House is a woman. The chairperson of the Northern Cape House is a woman. The deputy chairperson of the KZN House is a woman. We are also participating in, we are leading in some of the committees. Let's come to the challenge. Since the beginning of 2020, I'll focus on 2020, our society saw a rise in the rate of gender-based violence and femicide cases after the pronouncement of the lockdown, which was aimed at combating the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Gender-based violence and femicide are social challenges that threaten the safety of our people, especially the vulnerable members of our communities. We know women and children and people with disabilities. These were magnified by the conditions of lockdown among family members and people who are in love relationships. Women, youth, and children, and elderly, and people with disabilities are receiving the end of the brutal attacks which are still wreaking havoc in our society. The media has been inundated day after day with reports of such brutality. The role of traditional leaders during the month of August, also known as Women's Month, participants have noticed that we need to, maybe, I don't know, how do men regard these women days, because it seems as if these are days for killing women and girls. Once we are saying this is Women's Month, this is Women's Day, but we not celebrate anything. Instead, we are mourning. But during that month, the Women's Month, when webinars were hosted to focus on the fight against gender-based violence and femicide cases, which became a second pandemic, taking the lives of many women and girls of all ages, from infants to elderly women. You saw houses burnt where there are also infants inside. So that's what we are talking about. Women traditional leaders were invited to participate in the dialogue on gender equality organized by the Ministry of Women, Youth, People with Disabilities, under the theme, Generation Equality. breaking the shackles of tradition for women economic freedom. We participated there. It was held in September 2020 on the Zoom platform. September is also known as Heritage Month, which our nation celebrates the core values of our society, which serve as a moral compass for culture, traditions, and heritage of our people. The institution of traditional leadership has a duty and responsibility to preserve, promote such values which are demonstrated in our culture, tradition, and culture. According to our constitution, that is the role which is there for traditional leadership. So if we don't protect those cultures and values, the communities will be asking, why are you not practicing your role as traditional leaders? So that is where you find us as sometimes not easy just to wake up and say, let's do away with this culture, because this culture does not belong to us. It belongs to the family. It starts with the families and goes to the communities. But we are looking forward to make sure that we really review our cultural practices. In the year 2020, focus shifted from merely celebrating culture and heritage, but zoomed into gender issues in culture, tradition, and heritage. As a nation united in diversity, we all hold our heritage and the values of Ubuntu as a unifying factor, our moral compass. We also do not overlook the role played by the traditional leaders, by primary drivers in the preservation and promotion of these values. Our role as traditional leadership is recognized as I've already indicated, as a custodian of culture and customs. Women traditional leaders acknowledge the significance of role they need to play to turn tide against COVID-19 and femicide through their organization. Namely, we have got Imbumba Nkosikazi Akomkhulu in Eastern Cape, Umgogodla Zulu, KZN, Queen's Forum in both Free State and also Mpumalanga and West. We have got also our South African Royal Princesses Network and other organizations who have been working tirelessly during the fight against COVID-19 and femicide and gender-based violence. But we need to talk about the progress in addressing this. During the month of September, the National House of Traditional Leaders joined the rest of the country in celebrating the Heritage Month by convening a webinar under the theme, Celebrating South African Human Living Treasures, as crafted by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. The department mandated to lead those matters. The webinar was also formed part of the build-ups of this RAC. As the National House of Traditional Leaders acknowledge the challenges which our society lives in, as it is characterized by gender-based violence. During that webinar, we had resolutions. Program Director, I really believe in coming with solutions instead of just complaining and complaining. I will just share with you our solutions now. They are there. We agreed that we need to review those cultures which are harmful to both women and children. That was our first resolution. The webinar assigned the Committee of Heritage, Culture and Traditions to lead research and work towards the review of cultural practices and customs that are viewed as obsolete and infringe on human rights. The intention is to align them with the provision of Bill of Rights in the Constitution. Cultural practices specifically mentioned included ukuthwala, kushubedisa, ukungena, hlatshwa dirope, death mourning period, and attire, which differs drastically between men and men. Amadoda wazile. Indoda sozibona inxiba impahla emnyama, sithi abantu abanxiba impahla emnyama. So zizinto besithetha ngazo ezo, and we have got that committee in all provinces, provincial houses. They are going to the issue of land ownership program direct, which is a burning issue. Because as we are talking about women, if you are talking about economy, you can't leave land behind. That's why we had to talk about women. There is currently a challenge of land ownership by women in areas of personal leadership, in our areas. Though this is not happening in all communities, women are prohibited to inherit or own land in their own capacity. Household of personal leaders should investigate the matter and address it without delay, as it is discriminatory and not. A communal land conference dialogue must be arranged so that the issue of land ownership by women must be addressed. The role of family and community in socialization of males and females is a critical one. Socialization of children plays a critical role in their adult lives and how they relate to each in society. The way children are brought up should be in such a manner that they respect each other, irrespective of their gender. The issue of boys don't cry, we've been talking about that issue, is something of past which is perpetuating gender discrimination and must be discussed. There should be engagement with the different sectors of society to discuss this matter, and this should focus on institutions such as family, the community, religious sector, traditional leadership, and schools to educate society. Customary initiation initiation should be used as school to teach. You know, when they are going for initiation, that is a school. So we need to see the results when they are coming back. Coming to issue of succession and leadership within institutions, the regency, as I'm a regent here, and acting capacity of females in personal leadership positions may be viewed as a right step towards the recognition of the role of women in personal leadership. But a lot of challenges still need to be addressed. Nuclear family may accept the acting, the regency, but the broader royal family always discriminate against you, saying that umfazi lo uzothina ukusiphatha and ubukhosi hamba nesiko. So there are those issues. A woman is required to marry whilst she does not have children, but the same is not required for the man who is marrying. You know that, especially because they will be saying, in fact, it's not only because the families, they don't recognize someone who is going to be married to their son when she has got children already at home. But when you arrive here, you figure there are children. So those are the issues we are talking about. System should be created to ensure traditional leadership is non-sexist, and royal families and communities need to be empowered on the role. We need capacity. Because as we are here, we're talking about these issues, most of us, we got capacitated on these issues, but back at home, they still need to be capacitated. Let me come to the number 6. Representation of female traditional leaders in structures of traditional leaders. I've talked about this one. We have talked about it, about which provinces have managed to do that. Redefining gender relations within institutions of marriage. The issues of bekezelemzi, be patient, whereas you are faced with a lot of challenges. Is it only said to us as women? It's not said to amadoda that bekezela ndoda emtshatweni, but kuzothiwa mfazi bekezela. This practice contributes to the current abuse of women, as the women is gathered with the stereotype into the marriage, which brainwashes them into believing that if marriage falls apart, it's because the women could not persevere. The man is never told about bekezela. That's what I'm always asking. Now let's come to creating and enabling environment for women and economic emancipation. That is very key for us. We must be emancipated economically. Women are the mostly affected by economic hardships. Most men are in urban areas, while women are left to fend for their children. It is important not only to emancipate women from discrimination against, but also on economic perspective. Government and institutions must develop programs to pursue existing programs and partnerships to support economic development initiatives, mostly in our rural communities for women. We have just launched a program directed a rural invest approach as traditional leaders. We just thought about really we need to go back to rural areas. That's why we have launched a rural invest strategy. And also the district model, which are among some of the programs that could be pursued. Let's come to sexual orientation, which is always a burning issue when coming to traditional communities or rural communities. Most leaders in churches and traditional leadership do not view homosexuals as people, but as things that must not have a space in the society. This is not an insult. That is what is happening in our areas. It's even difficult to say, to talk about it. So that's why we have brought it to our resolutions. It is important that the religious leaders, as well as traditional leaders, learn to accept sexual orientation of a person and not to discriminate against. If an heir apparent is homosexual, what is going to happen to the communities? They will be saying, no, we can't be led by so we need that education as communities. We need partners when coming to my conclusion. We have noticed, Program Director, that as we have been working very hard as women, we were working as women, leaving men I've agreed to work with men because as I've noticed, I've been with them, it is easy to get what is happening. For instance, social development, that is your department. We have got a good program there with men's sector as traditional leadership. That emanated from our discussions and the role we're given when we're dealing with our threat plan for HIV, TB, and STIs. Traditional leaders were given goal 4. That talks to these issues we are talking about here now. Gender-based violence, poverty, ukuthwala, those issues. So, also the goal 6, that talks about leadership. That's what we need to focus on. That's what we have been focusing on. So we agreed that really let's work with men. That's where we met Takuwanri Ime as a men's organization. That is working with us. Also the men's sector. We have been part of the launch of the men's parliament. We've been there. And the parliament, the resolution was that these men's parliaments must be taken to the provinces, together with boys' assemblies. That some have been launched, but we need to get more people to be part of it. And the program director, when discussions are taking place there, especially during the boys' assemblies, boys will tell you that I am very angry because my father neglected me.
Correct, yeah.
He was not part of my life. The other boy during our boys' assembly gathering in Nyandin, Eastern Cape, said, I was so angry because my father was not there for a long time. But he came back. But when you meet with them, you get all those issues. And we can't say, my daughter, yenzani oku, nenzeni. Let's get input from them telling us what should be done, what are the So that's why I've been also participating with Ebuhlandi, which is led by my daughter. They've asked me to be part of their discussions because they wanted me to listen to them, not as a woman now. Both I'm a woman, but a leader. So when I'm standing here, program director, as a woman, who is a leader also, people must, because I can't stand here and cry and cry and cry. I must become, I'm expected to come with solutions because there will be people crying here. But I must not be part of those who are crying as a leader. I must be part of the solution. In conclusion, program director, while one hand, the institution of traditional leadership is committed to preserve culture, customs, and heritage, it is also has a responsibility of upholding the Constitution, principles, and values to ensure social cohesion in our society. We continue to invite and mobilize various stakeholders to participate in programs and hold hands to fight gender-based violence and to achieve cohesive communities. Organizations of women traditional leadership invite partners to work tirelessly with gender communities. We are going to launch, Program Director, men's parliaments and boys' assemblies in all 882 traditional councils in South Africa. That is the resolution we are coming with. So let's work together against gender-based violence, because if we are faced with this, women will not be able to access services like health and other services. As it has been happening during lockdown, they were unable to go to the clinics. Even now, it's going to be difficult for them, and they've lost jobs. We need to look at those communities. I thank you very much for inviting me, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Mama.